So I'd like now for everybody to see this fly through an animated view through the design for the university. The overview shows us a clear relationship of buildings and grounds to water, reminiscent of the Clearwater Bay campus. As we come to the entry court, we see a similar recall of the semicircular arrangement of buildings with the red firebird sculpture. The administration building contains an archway that leads us into the main courtyard to the north and a commanding council chamber room looking towards the north. As we move to the north along the canal, we come to the central hub of the campus. An oculus above, below that circulation spaces, gathering spaces for students and faculty, and a pre-function space for a lecture hall auditorium. Along to the north, we see the library, which spans with its archway across the river, connecting East Campus to West Campus. In its foreground, a great lawn where students can congregate, looking up towards the library. Inside the library, an entry space, which gives way to a spiral circular staircase, taking you up to levels 2, 3, and 4, to learning commons, reading spaces, and some spaces open 24 hours a day. Stepping back, we see the academic concourse, classrooms, faculty offices, laboratories, collaboration space, and we can see through the facade stairways and walkways that accentuate the importance of communication, contact, and connectivity. Inside the building, multi-levels connected by staircases, flanking them, collaboration spaces, in this case, to look into the laboratories to give us an example of science on display. Between these spaces and the laboratories, there are also some high bay spaces for large equipment and large assemblies. And looking down upon the main quadrangle, we can see the roofscape is planted, can be used in good weather by students, and then the roofs of the laboratory buildings clad with photovoltaic panels. So this will allow the renewable resource of solar energy to factor into the equation of energy use on campus. To the north of this is the north residential set of quadrangles, and we can see a community building with place for gathering, some smaller scale residential buildings in the foreground, and then in the background these two quadrangles of stepped buildings. The textures of the architecture give a sense of depth and shadow and give a sense of warmth, humanity. On the groundscape, there's the possibility of structures for kids so that there's a family-friendly aspect for this faculty housing. And then the buildings themselves are stepped to allow for some plantings. The faculty can have some relief in the outdoor space, even from their units. Coming down to the ground, two structures framing a court. One is for data and the other for energy generating elements of the complex. We can also see through semi-transparent parts of the facade, selectively chosen to give views into the processes that happen inside the data and energy buildings. Across the canal, we see these two buildings right next to the north residential zone, stepping down in scale. And then going further to the south, we see the very important athletic complex, a running track, a soccer field, some bleacher seating, and then the multifunction athletic complex building. And to the right-hand side, the High Street, the main residential cluster of faculty and student housing. In the walkway between the athletics complex and the High Street buildings, we can see the easy proximity between the two. The student life and faculty life are integrated with well-being and health. And then inside the athletics building, we see climbing wall, cafe, probably a great place for students to hang out. And then the swimming pool with graceful arches and a skylight as well. This view shows us a very clear set of relationships for walkways that lead you from athletics back to the academic center or to the left-hand side towards the High Street. On the way on the right-hand side, the north residential compound. So everything comes together in this network of pathways and landscape. Moving over to the south, to the High Street itself, the sort of main center of residential life. It's meant to have a sense of urbanity with covered walkways to encourage pedestrian comfort, also with bookstore, cafes, and with a minimal amount of traffic, mostly in the way of autonomous vehicles. Then off to the side of this high street are several courtyards, in the middle of which would be these amenity structures, some indoors, some outdoors, allowing for informal activity. We come to the western part of the high street, to the Student and Staff Activity Center. That student center features a planted roof, and then outside the building on the paved zones, cafes that would spill out. Inside, student functions, and also the FYTTRI offices, interactive spaces. So now coming out to the overall view of the campus, we can see the balance between landscape, green, nature, and inhabited spaces, all pulled together so that the vitality of interaction, communication, sharing, interdisciplinary thinking of a balance between recreation and hard work will make for a wonderful place to live and learn.